Hey everyone, Fina here from Fina Reads, and welcome to my bi-weekly book ramblings where we will ramble about books. How about that? Especially about the books that I read over the last 2 weeks. And then at the end, I'm going to talk about the books that I want to read in the next 2 weeks, but I need your help making a decision for that. I would be super grateful if you help me with that decision at the end. But first of all, let's talk about the books that I read over the last 2 weeks. Basically checking in since my last book ramblings and just, see where we're at right now. All right. So in my last book ramblings, we talked about Isaac Asimov's Foundation. And of course, I finished it. And if you haven't seen yet, I also put together a spoiler-free review for the first book of the Foundation trilogy. By the way, I did not research why it is actually called a trilogy, even though it is more than 3 books. I don't know. Well, we'll see. But this was a 5-star read for me. I loved this so much, even though there's practically no world building and practically no character development in this book, which I usually really enjoy. The plot was incredible. And given that this thing is 70 years old, 70 that is, I just find it so impressive how far ahead of his time Isaac Asimov was back then. And I don't know, I just love the premise. I love the idea of the story. If you don't know what Foundation is about, it's basically a mathematician who puts out a prediction saying, in a couple of years the empire will fall apart. We will fall back into barbaric times. And he came up with a solution on how to shorten that period the empire will be in those barbaric times. And you basically jump in time. Like, there are 5 parts in this book, and every part is jumping forward in time and showing you, what the status is of the empire at that point. I loved this book. I definitely want to continue with this series. It was so good. The next book that I read was Gods of Rome. So can we have a short moment of applause here, please? I finally read it. I know it has been, I think, on pretty much every TBR video that I've put out so far. Oh man, this is sad. But I finally did it. Yay! Woohoo! And I finished Gods of Rome, and man, this series, I'm still speechless. Gods of Rome belongs to the series Rise of the Emperors. It's book 3. It's basically finishing out the series, the trilogy. And it was just, I've never read something like this before. It was the best character study that I've ever read in my life, I think. It was just incredible. And anyway, I don't want to... I had some good 2 weeks. I had some really good books here, seriously. But also for this one, I put a review together. Go to the other video, it's spoiler-free, of course, and check it out. I mean, if you love character development in a book, you should definitely check those 3 books out. After that, I needed something shorter, though, and that was then Stephen King's The Mist. And funny enough, it was actually quite foggy the 2 days I read this book, so this didn't help. The Mist is a novella that has been part of, I'd have to look it up, you probably know that even better than I do, but was part of a bigger story collection by Stephen King, and if I remember correctly, it's now published the first time as a standalone, although standalone with quotation marks because it's part of a box, so there are 4 books in the box, and I mean technically this is standalone, but you have to buy the entire box to get it, so, I don't know if you can really define this as standalone. But anyway, The Mist was not quite what I was thinking it was. I was hoping it's more one of those psychological books like, Gerald's Game or The Long Walk or any of those where you're in the people's head and you're experiencing what they're going through. It was not quite. It was not at all that, to be honest. It was more really a horror story and with some scary, not really jump scare situations, so I was able to read it, but it was not quite what I was hoping for, so meh. Although I have to say the first half I really enjoyed. I loved the family, the characters of the family, the situation, like how everything started with their little house on the lake and all of those kind of things, the little bit of backstory that we get for the main characters. But then at one point, a little bit after the half, it started turning into something where I was just sitting there and wondering where those decisions are coming from. They didn't fit, I found, and I just, I don't know. I thought they were just made to get more of the monsters, in the book. That's why they made those decisions. I know a lot of people have an issue with the very open end in this book. That doesn't bother me as much, probably because at that point I was not as invested anymore. So it's more a 3-star read for me, because the first half was really, really good, but then it kind of, tanked in the second half because of just weird decisions and it not being really the book that I was hoping it to be, if that makes any sense. The next book that I finished is an odd one. It's not something that I would usually read, probably, but there was a very particular reason why I picked this up. So I think it was Dominic from Dominish Books who pointed out to me on one of the many Discords that we're all on, pointed out to me that there's a book with my name on it. I mean, literally with my name on it. And that book is Josefine, or Josefine. I've in my head, I always read it as Josefine because that's how my name is actually pronounced. And the exciting thing for me is it's spelled correctly, because the majority of times if I tell someone my name's Josephine, in their head they spell it with a PH. Or throughout my life, I was always frustrated, when you have those stores where you get mugs with your name on it, or like keychains with your name on it, or anything with your name on it. Josephine, if that name was available at all, was always spelled with a PH. Or that is something that I realized here in the US with an A at the end, which is why I got so excited that this one had my name on it. And then the star plays in Germany. What a coincidence. So, I had to pick it up, and I went into this with pretty low hopes because it's packaged as a paranormal romance fantasy type of thing. Urban fantasy, whatever you want to call it. It definitely plays in today's time. And it's about a witch called Josefine who lives with her grandmother, who's a very powerful witch as well. And then, just things go wrong and things happen and she has to run away. There's a lot going on in this book. Let's put it that way. So I just finished this book and I'm contemplating if it's a 3 or 4-star read for me. And to be honest, the 4-star read would be mostly because it has my name on it. I don't know if that's weird to give a star for that, but hello, that's me. I'm weird sometimes. So I'm actually thinking about filming a review about this book because it is cute. It is a cute story. And if you're looking for something, a little bit easier to read, just having a fun time for a couple of hours, because it's also not very big. It's like 300 pages or something. If you're looking for a good time, I think this is actually a good option. So anyway, this is book 1 in a series though. I think I did some research. I think the author said it's going to be 3. The only book that I was able to find on Goodreads is book 2, which is coming out in May. And since this book ended on a cliffhanger, I'm sitting here like, I guts to know. I need to know how this book continues. So that's all the books I finished in the last 2 weeks. And then the book that I'm still reading and in the middle of is A Game of Thrones. I'm taking it slow. I've read it before, so I know where the story's going. I actually switched from book to audiobook because I learned how to crochet last week. And I realized, you know what? Listening to an audiobook is perfect when you crochet because I have to look at it anyway. Because I'm just starting out, right? So I have to look at it anyway. And that's why I can't watch TV, but I also don't want to have it silent. And then on the flip side, I love to listen to audiobooks, but I cannot be too distracted. So I cannot do that while I'm working because then I stop listening to it. Then it's just really background noise. I cannot just sit there and listen and, stare at a wall. I fall asleep at that point. So I always hesitate listening to audiobooks. And now with the crocheting, that's kind of the perfect combination. So I'm very slowly getting through Game of Thrones and it will probably take some time, but that's all right. Alrighty, that's what I read in the last 2 weeks. Now we're coming to the difficult part. What do I read next? Because except for in the middle of Game of Thrones, I haven't started a new book yet. So I need your help. On my TBR, I have Dragonfly Falling, which is a big chunker, and that's book 2 in the Shadows of the Apt series. That is a big contestant. The other contestant is The Passage by, what is his name? Justin Cronin? Yep. And first of all, I don't know if the camera picks it up. This cover is like really nice and reflective. It has like a color changing thing going on a little bit here. And the reason why I would like to read this book is I read Empire of the Vampire not too long ago. And I actually bought it kind of knowing, I shouldn't buy it and it's not the right book for me, but I was all of a sudden craving a really good vampire story. And that craving was not fulfilled by that book by any means. So since then, I've been kind of sitting here. Hey, I want to read a vampire book. And when I talked about it, a lot of people actually pointed out the passage, I don't know how to pronounce this, by Justin Cronin. And I've never even heard about it. I've never seen it. I know there's a partial adaptation of that. I have no idea. I just know this is kind of a post-apocalyptic book with a young girl that is saved from a government facility that, I don't know, exploded or something. And then there's somehow vampires in it. So I have no idea. And people say this is amazing, but this is huge. I mean, that is not a short book. Or is it one of these? Because, Grey Bastard, let's talk about that guy first. Awful cover, by the way. The reason I never bought it is because of the cover. But Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads, his patron pick is this book. And originally I was like, you know what? I'm not that interested. But then we were on a reading sprint together, and he kept talking about this book and explaining how great it is and how different it is from a lot of fantasy stories and how worth reading it is. And now he got me all excited. And then the other one that jumped into my Barnes & Noble's cart, and I only keep hearing good things. And so the question is, am I mentally in a state for something really big and a bit more complex, like, one of these books? Or do I need a romance story? And it sounds quirky enough that this is something I would actually enjoy. And every now and then, you know what? I'd like romance stories. It is what it is. Long story short, tell me in the comments which book I should pick up next, which book I should read in November. Oh my goodness, there are too many good books out there. It is first world problems. Thanks so much for stopping by. I hope I see you soon with my next video. Until then, have a great rest of your day. Bye.